there's an even bigger case out there right now with the Cincinnati Bengals and what they're trying to do right now, which is kind of make a case study out of Shemar Stewart. Obviously, the edge coming out, not a whole lot of sacks in college. Maybe that plays into a little bit of this conversation here. But Ari, can you break down what is going on between the two sides and why what should be, in theory, a very simple rookie contract should have already been agreed to by somebody who was taken in the top 20 picks?
Yeah, I mean, like we all know, all first round picks get fully guaranteed contracts. And I'm remembering it now, but I actually was on Check the Mic here before the first round of the draft. And we were talking about Shemar Stewart and his entire pre draft process. And I think I mentioned his agent as being part of some team's concerns. And I remember when he was picked by the Bengals, I actually texted Ben, like, this might become like the greatest war of all time when it comes to the NFL. And here we are. It's actually happening. So I was talking about a second contract, to be fair. I did not think it would happen with his first contract, but here we are with his rookie deal. But the situation is a fascinating one, and I could hear both angles here. I could understand the team side. I could understand the player side as well. Basically, the Bengals, when they picked him 17th overall, they basically wanted to change some of the language in the contract that if there was ever a situation where his contract could void, his entire contract would void. If an off-the-field thing happens, everything voids. In previous years, when the Bengals had their contract, including last year with Marius Mims, who was picked later than Shemar Stewart, pick number 18, their contract language there was that if something happens off the field, only that current year would void. So that's essentially what the Bengals want to change over here. Now, if you look around some other teams picking next to the Bengals, they actually have the language the Bengals want to change too, which is why they want to make this change. The argument from the player side is, A, why are you using us as an example? B, why are you using us when last year you had a later pick? Now you have an earlier pick. If anything, do this when you guys are good and picking at 30 or something. Don't do this now. So that has been the argument. And really, a lot of teams around the NFL are kind of laughing at this, like especially for a team like the Bengals, who every single year we talk about their slow starts and there's distraction and there's things going on. Like, are you really going to have an issue with your first round pick? And not only your first round pick, the first round pick that you made because you had a problem with your other edge rusher and Trey Hendrickson, you're trying to maybe, threaten him in a way. Now he's also not on the field. Now you have both guys not on the field. It's like, what are you guys doing here? This should be something that should be very, very simple, but it's a true power struggle between an agent who is very, very stingy and has been difficult at times because he really wants to get the best things for his clients. James Cook's situation in Buffalo, that's him. J.K. Dobbins a couple years ago when he was out for most of the season, then was a hold-in during training camp, that was him. So this is an agent who's very, very stubborn with his players because he wants to get the best for them. And then you have this organization in the Bengals that we kind of know through history, they're very difficult when it comes to contracts. We see the Trey Hendrickson situation, Jamar Chase last year. Over the years, they've been, dozens of cases of players who have had issues. So none of this is a surprise. And there is a real scenario where this could also extend potentially into training camp. There have been some discussions in recent days, but nothing substantial to a point where I think one side is going to give in. So we're kind of stuck the way we've been since he was drafted 17th overall.
Yeah, when this initially kind of came up, I thought the Bengals were trying to sort of slip in language that didn't really exist throughout the rest of the league. But actually, it turns out like quite a lot of teams have this kind of thing. The problem is the Bengals are trying to do it randomly, like it just sort of slip it in randomly when they haven't had that precedent. Like there are other teams who have this language and have had it basically since the last CBA, and they use it with every single player, and that's just the way they do business. So if this team picks you, you're going to have to deal with this, and maybe you can push back against it, but it's difficult to break precedent in either direction. So the Bengals' problem is that they're trying to break precedent and insert, what is a worse contract or worse language into a contract for a guy who, as you said, like from their perspective, it's hard to come up with a reason for that, right? Other than, a reason that isn't, hey, we think you are more concerning than the average player we would draft at this spot, to which the obvious answer is, well, then why did you pick us here, right? If you picked us at this spot, we should be worth the contract. You can't put this deal in when you didn't put it into the deal from the last guy. You haven't put it into the deal from other guys. What interests me, though, is how much do you think the Bengals front office are just not difficult to deal with? I think we know that that's true. But you ever see the Hard Knocks when the Cincinnati Bengals were on it? I saw a clip of this a while ago that came back. It was Andre Smith, their first round pick, who also held out, went deep into training camp, and eventually they got the deal done. But they showed a reasonable amount of back and forth there. And it was like the sort of, and they've done this with Trey Hendrickson as well, sort of insinuating that he should basically just be happy with the deal they offer him, right? Like, be grateful that we've offered you any form of contract. You're here getting millions of dollars to play football. Why would you be pushing back against that? Like, to what extent do you think that it's the way, like the attitude that they come across with is a problem for agents or people dealing with the Bengals?
Well, what do you think, Sam? What's the outstanding status on your credentials right now? Has that gotten approved yet?
No, the two young reporters from the Cincinnati Bugler, or whatever we decided we were for, we're still on the outside looking in of the press box. So it's certainly not enhancing our chances of getting credentials, but I don't think it's harming anything either.
Well, okay, so here's my other question, though, and this transitions perfectly into the next guy we're going to speak about is you take Shemar Stewart knowing you're having issues with your star pass rusher and Trey Hendrickson. So You think you have like this pretty good insurance policy, but now you don't have either of them. So if this is week one all of a sudden, Sam, like, what are you doing? Because the two guys that you, in theory, are investing the most in aren't going to be there potentially.
My favorite thing, by the way, about that Andre Smith thing is once they finally got him signed, the first scene was they bring him in to meet Mike Brown, who basically called him fat to his face. He was like, "Wow, you've put on some serious weight. You got to get out there and work, son." Like, I mean, that's okay. I mean, to be fair, given Andre Smith's career, Mike Brown wasn't wrong, but still, it doesn't set a great, that's not the starting point you want to go off on. This is the thing about negotiations, right? Like, at some point, you hear people talk about how you negotiate and the ability to walk away, but you can't walk away in a deal like this. Something has to get done. So it's kind of how you handle the negotiations. And the Bengals, because Trey Hendrickson is also a deal that needs to get done, they're now in this ridiculous spot where they're playing hardball in two separate cases, each of which affects the other one. And as of right now, they basically have no pass rush whatsoever to speak of. And it was already a problem area. So, I mean, you don't really have a ton of leverage here. Like, you have to get them done.
It's all true. And the funny thing about the Andre Smith situation, which you speak about, that was back when you actually had to negotiate the numbers for a first round pick. That's when it was actually really difficult. And you actually had legitimate holdouts, and the Bengals were very difficult to work with. Now, first round picks, the numbers are slotted. Like, you're going to get fully guaranteed money. Like, the haggling over stuff, for people who don't know, is truly about language. It's about void money. It's about offsets. It's about when the money will be paid. It's like little things. And you go by the team's history or prior draft picks in that slot. That's basically how you get the language to know what you're going to use in the contract. And the Bengals, in this scenario, when it should not be this difficult, they are making it very difficult. Now, I've had some people around the NFL tell me the reason they're picking on Shemar Stewart is not because of his potential off the field problems, not because he's different than Amarius Mims or Miles Murphy or Jamar Chase, their other first round picks. It's simply because it is an agent who does not really have that many clients, and they don't really have to deal with him much. So let's pick on this guy. I mean, that's one reason that's going on around the NFL. But still, going back to your point, Sam and Ben, this is a team that has aspirations this year about making it far. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch the quarterback series on Netflix. I've watched all of it. Seeing how disturbed Joe Burrow was last year and how bad the season was and how frustrating it was, even though he was playing well, and Trey led the league in sacks and Jamar Chase had the triple crown. They had distractions going into the year, and they're talking about why every single year we start the year 0-2 or 0-3. They want to change that. And if you look at a different team around the NFL, for example, the 49ers last couple of years, they've had drama every single offseason. Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, all these different players, Deebo Samuel. This year, they made it an urgency for them to get everything done before training camp. George Kittle done, Brock Purdy done, Fred Warner done, no drama at all going into training camp. The Bengals should have the same mindset. And for whatever reason, they treat business like it's like I had one agent tell me like they treat it like it's their own money, and if we give too much money to one player, that's money we're losing out in spending on a family vacation. Like it's a wild thing.
But that actually is true though, right? Ari, like this is one of those families in the NFL in which like this is the money, is the team, right?
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now.
Yes, they're every owner is rich, but when it comes to, I guess, the poorest of all of them, it's probably this family. So that's
critical, right? Like that point, because people will make that sort of defense of them, like, oh, they're the poorest owners in the NFL. Like they don't have this money. They don't have there's not a cash poor owner in football. Like they are all at the helm of multi-billion-dollar franchises. And okay, maybe you don't have right now, Walton money just sitting in the bank burning a hole, but you have access to effectively unlimited amount of funds. I'm talking without having to leverage 10% of the team, which you're now able to do. Like, even if you don't want to do that, even if you don't want to, get outside investment and sell off 10% and bring in somebody rich, like they all have access to the kind of money they need in any given offseason, even including one where they need to get Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson done. Like they could lock up all of those contracts, throw all that money in escrow, and it's not a problem. Mike Brown is not going to he's not desperately searching the back of the couch looking for the money for Trey Hendrickson. Like that's not why this is happening.
Just to understand the level that some agents go to because they know how difficult it is to work with the Bengals. T. Higgins literally had to fire his agent, who's one of the very best in the NFL, and find out the strategic plan with Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase to hire the same agent as Ja'Marr Chase so they team up and make life miserable for the Bengals front office to force them to pay both players before Joe Burrow exploded. I mean, that's literally the level they went to try to get Mike Brown and Katie Blackburn and the entire front office to pay the money they deserve. And frankly, even the contract T. Higgins got, he could have done better if he waited another year, but he just wanted to stay in Cincinnati. But he would have never gotten it if he did not do that crazy strategic plan that Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase essentially thought of hiring the same agent as Ja'Marr. So the level some players go to try to get the Bengals to step forward and pay their players, it's a lot. And Trey Hendrickson has been dealing with it for the last 3 years. He's been wanting a new contract. They promised him one last year. They've barely stepped up to the plate this year, and now he's still waiting, and we'll see what he does come training camp. There has been some communication, I could tell you that, but it's not enough right now for me to feel like something is going to change. And then the Shemar Stewart situation, again, there's been some talks, but again, nothing for me to feel like this thing could be moving forward over here in the next couple of days.
Just with the Trey Hendrickson thing, I know Steve has made this point before, like, with Trey Hendrickson, he's over 30 at this point. It's a difficult contract to get done. The same way with sort of TJ Watt, because Myles Garrett's number is astronomical now. The contract numbers going through the roof. And for guys that are at or over 30, you can understand why there would be reticence from the Bengals to sort of say, well, yeah, let's give you, $40 million a year. Let's give you giant money, because you might have one more good year of Trey Hendrickson left or TJ Watt before they hit the cliff and they stop giving you that elite level pass rush. I know Steve has kind of made this point of, why not just force him? Like, he's under contract. It's not like this is a player they don't have under contract right now. He's looking for a new deal, but technically he's got a year left of the deal that he's currently on. Why not play the hard ball, force, even if he, holds out through training camp, eventually he will have to cave, show up again, and play through this last year of your contract. The question I would ask you, because I'm on your side, judging by the facial expressions, I don't think that's plausible. Why can't that work? Why can't they just say, you're not getting your new deal, you can get your new deal next offseason for somebody else, you're under contract, we expect you to honor that contract, let's play ball?
Would you risk pissing off Joe Burrow, though? I mean, because really, when it comes down to it, this is a vibes thing. This is a guy that really wants his best players out there. You're talking about the guy who led the NFL in sacks last year, as well as having all of those PFF numbers and a lot of things to actually back it. It wasn't just a guy out there who's trying to go after the quarterback. So doesn't it just make sense to pay the best players you have there to make sure that your franchise quarterback, who's arguably would have won the MVP last year, had the team made the playoffs, to keep him like actually happy?
Here's the thing. First of all, if this does not get done, my prediction is Joe Burrow is going to go public and say something. That's number one. I think because it's going to be too much of a distraction during training camp with Trey and Shemar. Number two, Trey last year and the year before really wanted a new contract, but last year was when he also requested a trade and privately made a very big fuss. And the organization told him, listen, be a warrior, play for the team. We'll revisit next year. And they essentially gave him word that we will revisit next year and take him more seriously. He did that. He showed up for training camp, didn't skip anything, led the league in sacks, was second in defensive player of the year. And then the season was over. And it wasn't just that. Like, he was one of those players who really rallied the defense. Like, all the players there, like, he was basically the leader of the team as the year went on. He became more vocal, which was not his thing. Once the season came to an end, he was expecting to have some sort of discussions with the team. There have not been any discussions with the team, to the point that privately and publicly, we've seen Trey Hendrickson get really, really frustrated, and to the point where he has now said it on the record, he's not playing this year for $16 million. And not only that, he's not going to play if it's just a one-year tweak. He's looking for a multi-year deal. The one thing I will tell you, Sam, you mentioned $40 million per year. He's not asking for 40. He's asking for the 30s. He's in the 30s. That's where he is. He just wants to be compensated where the rest of the pass rush market has been in the last several years, whether it's the Brian Burns, the Rashawn Gary, the Josh Allen contract, and now this year with the Max Crosby's, the Neil Hunter, and eventually the Micah Parsons deal that's going to come in. Like, those guys are going to surpass bigger numbers. He wants to go back down to where was the Neil Hunter? Where was Max Crosby? That's kind of where he's sitting at. He could play way more hardball than what he is right now, but he's not. And for whatever reason, the Bengals have been acting the same way they did last year. And that is really the reason why he is the most frustrated. Last year, you guys told me something. And it's not like there was a regime change here where it's like, oh, it's a different person here. It's the same people. And that's been the thing that's been pissing him off its entire offseason.
And that's so huge, the fact that he's not looking for that. Like, he doesn't want a deal that matches Myles Garrett's contract. And honestly, if you were Trey Hendrickson's agent, you could make that argument. Like, it wouldn't be a great one because Myles Garrett is clearly a better player than Trey Hendrickson. But, like, Trey Hendrickson beat him in sacks last year. Trey Hendrickson beat him in pressures last year. Trey Hendrickson's PFF pass rushing grades have been ascending into that Myles Garrett level for the last couple of years. Like, you could make the argument that contractually he deserves to be at the same level, and he doesn't want that. Like, for the Bengals, they should be jumping all over that opportunity and saying, this guy, he's the only player out there who's willing to actually, agree with us and say, you don't belong in that same contract echelon. Get that done as fast as humanly possible. The point I would make, though, is, he said, like, he's not playing on this deal. Players kind of say that kind of stuff all the time because that's what you have to do with the negotiation. But Hendrickson feels like a guy who would honor that. Like, I think a lot of players say that and they don't mean it, and eventually they'll cave and they'll play anyway. I feel like Hendrickson, if they don't do, if they tried to do what I said earlier and just said, you're under contract for a year, play on it and deal with it for somebody else next year, he wouldn't show up. Like, he just wouldn't play football.
I've gotten that impression as well. And I agree with you. Players say that all the time, but I feel like this is a different situation. I mean, I've heard from all angles of this story. And if you know Trey Hendrickson, the person, I think he is somebody, when he says something, he's serious. And he's been saying it privately and publicly that he's not playing this year on that current contract. Maybe eventually he'll give in on just changing the 1 year of his deal and getting more money this year and adding maybe a no tag clause, guaranteed free agent. Maybe something like that happens as a compromise. But $60 million this year, the way the contract is set up right now, where you still can get franchise tag next year, I have the feeling inside me from hearing from all the sides over here, he's being serious and he will not step on the field of that contract.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.